Y'all come on in now. Pull up a chair and get comfortable. The fire is warm and the night is long, just right for a story. Some stories live in books. Others get passed down, whispered through the years, like wind moving through the trees. But the best ones never die. They just wait for someone to listen. The post rider passed through town every week. Rain or shine, snow or mud he came, his horse kicking up dust or ice or the first green shoots of spring. Folks would gather near the general store when they saw him, waiting, hoping, hands twisting in aprons, boots scuffing against the wooden planks of the porch. And each time, Margaret Fletcher stood among them, waiting, hoping. But the letter never came. The war had taken her husband away 2 years ago. He had stood at the edge of the field, his rifle slung over his shoulder, his hand lingering on the fence post as he looked back at her one last time. "I'll write when I can," he had said, voice steady, eyes soft. "And when this is over, I'll come home." Then he was gone, walking down the road with the other men, their figures swallowed up by the dust and the weight of what lay ahead. At first, the letters had come often, short notes written in a hurried hand, smudged with dirt and sweat. "I am well. The days are long. The cold is coming early this year. I dream of home. Pray for me." And she did. She prayed at the hearth in the mornings. She prayed while kneading bread, her hands pressing rhythmically into the soft dough, the warmth of the kitchen curling around her. She prayed in the fields at dusk, watching the sun slip behind the hills, wondering if he was seeing the same sky, if he was safe, if he was cold, if he was hungry. Then the letters came less often. Then not at all. Winter passed. Spring came, bringing the first shoots of wildflowers in the valley, the scent of damp earth, the quiet hum of bees drifting through the orchard. Summer stretched long and slow. The crops grew tall. The sky burned gold in the evenings. Autumn arrived with crisp air and the scent of wood smoke curling through the hollows. The leaves turned, bright as fire, and then fell, leaving the trees bare, their branches stretching toward the sky like empty hands. Still, she waited, and still no letter came. She told herself that there were many reasons a letter might not reach her. The roads were dangerous. The war had moved farther south. Ink was scarce. Maybe he had written, maybe many times, but the words had been lost along the way, scattered like leaves in the wind. But deep in her heart, she knew. She had known for a long time. The post rider came through town again, just before Christmas. The air was sharp with cold, the scent of pine and chimney smoke curling through the streets. Snow clung to the eaves of the buildings, muffling the sound of boots against the wooden sidewalks. Margaret stood, as she always did, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders, her breath curling in the air. The post rider swung down from his horse, pulled a sack from his saddle, and began calling names. One by one, people stepped forward, accept letters from sons, from brothers, from husbands. Margaret listened, waited, hoped, but her name was never called. She turned, stepping off the porch, boots crunching against the frozen ground, making her way back toward home. The road stretched long ahead of her, winding up into the hills, where the little cabin stood just as it had for generations. The candle still burned in the window, a beacon against the coming dark. The chimney still sent up its thin ribbon of smoke, curling into the cold blue sky, and inside, her chair still sat beside the hearth, waiting for her. She stepped inside, closing the door softly behind her. The fire crackled low in the grate, casting flickering shadows against the walls. She crossed the room, pulled out a sheet of paper, dipped her pen into the inkwell, and began to write. "My dearest Joseph." Her hand hesitated for only a moment. "The snow has come early this year. The house is warm and the fire burns steady. I picked the last of the apples in the orchard today and set them to dry by the hearth. I wish you could see them. I wish you could see everything." The candle flickered beside her. The wind whispered against the window. "I do not know if you will ever read this." She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the pen. "But I will write anyway." And so she did. And on the windowsill beside the flickering candle, she set the letter, folded, waiting, just in case. If this story spoke to you, if you felt the echoes of the past in its words, I invite you to stay a little longer. Like this video, subscribe, and join me as we continue weaving stories of history, home, and the hearts that lived before us. Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you for being here.